when I first met you, we were talking about freedom. And one of the questions that I'm asking our guests is, what does freedom mean to you?
I would say freedom is just the ability to express oneself, express their passions, express their goals, work to help those around them, but doing so within a legal system. As we were talking earlier, having accountability. Freedom is available, should be used, but there are also laws and boundaries that keep us accountable in the way we express freedom. So I would say, for me, freedom is just the ability to encourage those around me. It's to give people hope and purpose that Christ gave to my life, and in turn, hopefully, encourage them to do the same for others.
Wow, thank you for sharing that.
For sure.
I have a question for you. Where were you born?
Yes, I was born in Tomsk, Russia. It's about 4 hours southeast of Moscow. So I believe by plane it's about 16 hours from Chicago. So.
Russian in our midst.
Yes.
Well, we're happy to have you on the show. Joining us also is Jody Lang. She's a dear friend of mine and a veteran who's actually fought for freedom. So
Thank you for your service.
Oh, thank you for everything you've done as well.
Oh, for sure.
Another question, how did you end up here in America?
Sure. It's definitely a story that at the time seemed random and without purpose, but as I choose to piece it back together, I can see the meaning and the purpose that God gave my story. I was adopted when I was 10 years old, but I can backtrack all the way to...
Yes, please fill us in a little bit on the details before you ended up here and how that progressed.
And what impressions has it left on you to live in a different country and come to America?
Okay, absolutely. So I can backtrack to before my birth.
Wow.
My,
Here we go.
My biological father, he was in the Russian Navy, and he was in a regular training exercise, and the submarine sunk. 27 of the 30 men aboard died because there wasn't enough oxygen in the submarine. The remaining 3 were my father and his 2 other officers.
Oh, how horrible.
So much
tragic
brain trauma and lack of oxygen. One of the officers actually pulled out his pistol and shot himself. So it was just my dad and this other officer who got rescued. And after that, my dad was no longer the same organized, involved in an orchestra, put together middle-class naval officer. He became a drunk, really wasn't around for his family, so his wife and 2 daughters, they left him. Shortly after he met what would be my biological mother, and they had me. I was born May 22nd, 1992, and I was born a healthy baby, 10 pounds, and
10 pounds.
10 pounds.
Healthy.
I was a big one.
definitely a healthy baby there.
For
Poor
sure.
mama.
Yep. And one of my first memories was at 3 years of age. My dad and I went to recycle some glass bottles to make some extra rubles. And when we left, my mom was painting the ceiling. And when we came back, I remember vividly her on the ground and the paint spilled on the ground. And what I've come to learn now, she had a heart attack. So at the age of 3, I had a father who wasn't around and a mother who had passed away.
Wow.
So from that point, my aunt and uncle, they would come and they would bring me food, they'd take care of me, and I had other extended family who really got me through those difficult years of growing up. And really at times between the ages 3 and 5, walking down the streets of my neighborhood, asking people for food. At the time, I didn't feel like I was begging, but that's really what I was doing. I was asking for food and it would be helping me out. And my aunt and uncle tried to adopt me, but because they already had children, the Russian government said, well, we don't think you can take care of more children. So between ages 5 and 10, I was in an orphanage. So that is what brought me to that place.
Wow, what a story to start your life with. I mean,
For sure.
I know losing my mom at 24 was traumatic. I can't imagine as a 3-year-old finding your mom dead on the floor in front of you.
It was a lot.
Wow.
It was a lot. And being in an orphanage, it was a big adjustment. I became a very stubborn kid, very unthankful. Couldn't say I love you, couldn't say hug people. Just very insecure, and had so much pain. At the age of 6, though, I thought, hey, this is an exciting opportunity. I got selected to stay with a host family in Spain for a month. If that family likes you, they adopt you. Well, I stayed there for a month, came back, no word from them. So that added to that
More
insecurity.
rejection.
Was my purpose? Where do I belong?
Yeah.
2 years later, I get selected to stay with a family in Long Island, New York, and I stayed there for a month. Love it. Feel like they love me. Now again, I didn't speak Spanish at 6. Didn't speak English at 8.
Yeah.
So I'm not sure if the language barrier added to it. I came back from New York with
Same
no word from them
Same story.
as
Wow.
well. And so 2 years later is when my parents adopted me, but I can add those details later.
So you kind of were the unwanted child, in a sense.
Essentially, yes, yes. And so at the age of 10, mom and dad are looking to adopt a girl who's 5 and a boy who's 7. I'm 10 at the time. So they come to the younger orphanage, they find Galena, and she's 5, it meets their qualifications. A few other girls are interested in, but they settle on Galena. Come to my orphanage of 200 kids, ages between 6 and 18, and they find a boy named Peter, who was one of my friends. He was 7. So to them, God is answering their prayers,
Yeah.
their timing, their desires.
For Hugh,
Perfect.
it's like, what about me?
Yeah, exactly. And I had no idea this was going on. And so as they're there on their first trip, the Russian government changed the law. And they said, well, the first trip is to see your kids, and the second trip you come back to pick up your kids. Well, my parents said, well, we can't afford a second trip. We can't afford another child. So they settled to come back and pick up Galena. Well, when they had come back a few weeks later, our church and our grandparents came through really strong with financial support that the translator had said, hey, we have 20 DVDs and videos of these 20 kids playing and interacting if you want to look at them. They said, well, we want Peter. And they said, well, Peter's not available anymore. He was adopted by another family.
Oh, wow.
So my parents got these 20 DVDs and video cassettes from not the left side of the orphanage where Peter was on the 3rd story, but from the right side of the orphanage on the 2nd story on the room on the right. I happened to be one of those 20 and got called out to the principal's office one day. Met my mom and dad for the first, strangers at the time.
Right?
And
Yeah.
I had a little interaction at the time. And mom tells me now, said, Vanya, the moment you walked into the room, I knew you were the one. So that's God for you. That's his hope. That's his purpose. That's his redemption.
Wow. Quite the story.
Thank you for sharing.
For sure. For sure.
Okay, so meeting mom and dad,
Yeah.
how did their adoption process go? I know adoption, especially foreign adoptions, are extremely difficult to go through.
Yes, there's a lot of paperwork, social work cases, the financial implication, and I'm so thankful for our church that came through and my grandparents who really helped in that space. But it was difficult, as you know now, U.S. adoption and Russian adoptions don't exist anymore.
Right.
So
I actually have a cousin that was
Really?
adopted from Russia.
Oh, that's so
She
cool.
got out just before the Russian borders closed on adoption.
Exactly.
So
Nice.
yeah, that's
Yep.
really cool.
My parents are brave. My dad was 29. My mom was 31 when they went halfway across the world to adopt me. And I give them a lot of credit. I just love them so much.
Yeah, to bring home a 10-year-old.
Yes, they do. Yeah, too. And
that doesn't speak English.
Yeah, and the reason they wanted 7 is because my older brother is only a year and a half away from me. So they asked him, and he was okay with it. So I give Tyler a lot of credits.
Thank you, bro.
Yeah, he okayed it. They were only a year and a half apart instead of about 5 years apart.
Okay.
So, yeah.
You're adopted,
Mhm.
and then coming back to the U.S., not knowing the language. How was that transition?
It was challenging, it was definitely, you mentioned earlier, what was it like to enter the U.S., and it was a culture shock. For 10 years I didn't have fast food. I landed in O'Hare, and they're like, welcome to America, here's your cheeseburger, which I loved. I loved McDonald's. But yeah, it was definitely a culture shock. It was an adjustment. It took me about 6 months to get the basics of English and to be able to communicate. After about a year, I was fluent. But what helped with that was going to a public school for my 4th grade year and just being surrounded by English, going to an ESL teacher twice a day.
Mm-hmm.
And then 5th grade through senior year, I was homeschooled, so give my mom the rest of the credit. But initially, it was just getting immersed in the language. which
Yeah,
helped a lot.
immersion is definitely helpful in learning the language for sure.
Absolutely.
It's do or die.
Yes.
Learn the language or you're out.
Exactly. Exactly.
That's to be a huge culture shock, though.
It was an adjustment. Absolutely. Yeah.
So what are some of the cultural differences that you faced
For sure.
in those early years?
For sure. Well, I think the biggest component was, having a family, for so many years searching and earning to be loved and accepted, to be wanted, and to not wake up every day to eat breakfast with the family, to have those fun experiences with the family. That was definitely a fulfilling.
Things that some of us take for granted.
For sure. For
Yeah.
sure. It's easy to do so. And at times growing up, I did too. But reflecting back on the story of what God's been doing I'm very thankful.
So how did you come to know Jesus?
Sure. So I was adopted at the age of 10, and my church is a Christian, my family's a Christian family who went to church on Sundays. There was Awana, Sunday school.
Oh, Juana's amazing.
Yep. and growing up Russian Orthodox, I thought if I was a good person who did enough good things, I would earn my way to heaven. But inside, I really had a heart of stone, as I said earlier. I couldn't say thank you, I love you, couldn't hug people, because I had so much pain, so much insecurity, so much hurt in my life that I couldn't imagine somebody sacrificing, dying for me, forgiving me unconditionally. I believed I had to earn my way to heaven and do something. So for 2 years, I was a stubborn Russian boy who said, no, I'm a good person and church is nice. But my family was praying for me for those 2 years. And praying that Vanya would see God, that Jesus would break through that heart of stone, and that he would transform me. And as stubborn as I was for 2 years, at the age of 12, we were on our way to Awana in Menominee Falls, driving County Road. Q there was now the JCPenney, used to be a Walmart. As we're passing that, I was asking my dad and my older brother in the car, who is Jesus? I said, you guys have Jesus in your life, but your life isn't perfect, but still you feel full, and I see that fullness of life in you. Something gives you hope and purpose. I said, I want to have that in me. So we pulled into that Walmart parking lot, and in there they explained, and we put all the pieces of those past 2 years of what I heard at church, what I heard at Awana, and saw my family live out. And I prayed there. I broke down, and I just felt the Holy Spirit come into my life. It felt real. It transformed me. The heart of stone was broken into a heart for God, and it allowed me to accept that unconditional grace, accept that unconditional forgiveness, understanding that my best acts and my best intentions are filthy rags in God's eyes, and I had to accept his mercy and grace. And all the pain, all the lies, all the insecurity for the past 12 years.
Well, yeah, all that rejection
Yes.
and not feeling loved or accepted.
Exactly.
That's a lot to go through.
It was.
To come to someone who doesn't care about any of that and
Exactly.
cares about you as the individual.
Absolutely.
That's
It's
a
freeing.
lot to break through.
It's freeing.
There's your freedom.
Yes, that too. Exactly.
There's your freedom. So what has become your passion then? What's brought you to your passion in life?
For sure. Well, growing up, for me, I was always a quiet leader. I wanted to lead by example. I wanted to encourage fellow basketball players or football players, my teammates, behind the scenes, help out, and I love that. To me, it wasn't about being heard, being vocal. It's doing my part to encourage somebody's day, somebody's moment. But as I played sports, my coaches spoke truth and life into me, and they said, hey, if there's an opportunity to lead, you got to step up. You got to rise to the occasion. And from there at UW-Washington County, my first 2 years of college in West Bend, it was the unlikeliest of people who got me involved in leadership. I got an email from an athletic director saying we need line judges for volleyball games. Having grown up in an athletic family, I officiated basketball, I line judge volleyball.
Yeah.
So I said, yeah, I'll come down, I'll sign the paperwork. As I'm filling out the paperwork in the athletic director's office, she said, hey, I'm a student government advisor for the student government here. Would you want to join student government and check it out? I said, I was homeschooled. I have no idea what student government does, student council is.
I can relate a little bit on that.
Exactly. I'm a quiet leader. How can I, make a difference? What do I have to offer?
Yeah.
And she said, well, I see something in you. I think you have great potential. And she said, one day you'll be a leader on this campus. Well, forward a year later, I was a student government senator there, treasurer a semester later, and elected as president my last year on campus. So between my coaches, family, Debbie, the athletic director at Washington County, they really got me involved in leadership, and really through that, leadership turned into being engaged in civic affairs, so government, campaigns. Then I actually got involved in student government at UW Green Bay, was elected as student government president there my senior year as well. You know, UW Washington County was 33 votes, UW Green Bay was 31 votes, so just enough to move on.
So you found your passion in government.
Yes.
In your early college years.
Exactly.
Okay.
Exactly, and that's what really has connected my story and what I've gone through to giving people hope and purpose and leading through example, but also at times being, you know, on a platform and using that public eye of government to encourage and help people.
How did you know what you wanted to go to school for? And
Sure.
you kind of hinted on it, but what gave you that passion or that
For sure.
purpose?
Yeah, the first 2 years I was just getting my general eds done, trying to figure out what college was, you know, being homeschooled, and started in business. Then I thought about architecture and interior design, but as I concluded my first 2 years, I heard that UW Green Bay had a very strong public affairs and political science, public administration policy, so I did some research on that. Had a few friends who transferred to UW Green Bay, and so I received a double major in 2015 with a political science and a public administration degree.
Congratulations.
So
Good for you.
thank you. Yeah, so it was really through getting involved in local elections, some campaigns that helped me see what I wanted to study in school. So
Very neat.
So through this whole progression of God leading you to leadership, have you faced any type of like discrimination or persecution because of your past and where you've come from?
well, not a whole lot. People have been very welcoming, inclusive as far as my Russian background, which which is great. You know, we joke from the Cold War and
Yeah.
what 2016 brought from time to time.
Mm-hmm.
If there's any differences or setbacks, it tends to be based on my faith, based to be on my political preference. But I'm still able to have those friendships, to still have those respectful discussions, and really maintain those friendships. For me, it's not about burning bridges. If another person chooses to, not interact because of my faith or my political stance, it is what it is. But I don't choose to receive that persecution, to receive that negativity, and
Perspective.
exactly, and maintain those relationships
Mm-hmm.
for sure.
That's important.